What if I told you that what's standing between you and your wildest dreams are the shackles of expectations set by society and those around you? And what if I told you that your journey begins by letting go of those expectations and by freeing yourselves? But what if I also let you know that it may cost you the disappointment of others in your life and may even cost you some very important relationships? As a young girl, I aimed to be the perfect kid and often praised by aunts and uncles for my mannerisms and for always being obedient of my parents and my uncles and my aunts. And that created a deep seed within me to seek approval. Oh, and by the way, I couldn't help but notice, I really love your blue shirt. Blue is my favorite color. Now, say that you're wearing blue tonight. Wouldn't hearing that compliment make you feel good? I know that if I was wearing blue and I heard that compliment, it would sure make my night. But see, this is not just a small remark or a compliment. This is more. It is ultimately a remark of approval. And I'm indirectly telling you that I approve of your choice of shirt today because it suits my taste. So therefore, I approve. So, to be able to live our truest and most authentic life, we have to not be held down or even solely motivated by other people's approval. We have to be brave enough to share our ideas. But have you ever shared a really good idea that you were so excited to share with your friends and family, only to be told that it's a stupid idea or that it's impossible? I heard my fair share of those statements. But to be free means we have to let go of those shackles of expectations, and that means that believing in our ideas first and foremost. We have to be brave enough to share our ideas and let the critics criticize. But those people's beliefs and opinions don't come in a vacuum. You see, we all have a worldview, and our worldview was shaped by the rejections we encountered, by the people in our lives, our caregivers, and the experiences that we have acquired in our lifetime. And so we develop this set of, it's like a lens of seeing the world. And within that lens, there's something called a limiting belief. And a limiting belief is something that we believe to be the absolute truth, and it guides us. We believe, for example, that we can't do something. And sometimes we don't criticize ourselves, our own thinking, and take those truths as real truths. I'll give you an example. For the longest time, I felt that my limiting belief, I didn't know it at the time, but now I do, was that I was not smart enough to achieve the crazy GPA goals I had. And I was often told by teachers and some of my mentors as well that I should be more realistic. And even though those people had well intentions, they still put a limit on me in that sense. You see, I came to Canada as a Palestinian-Iraqi refugee. So I was stateless, did not have a passport, and I was very much behind my classmates in terms of academics. I did not know what the division sign was, and we lived in a desolate refugee camp, as you can see in the picture. And so my academics were like none. And so coming to Canada, I had not only to deal with the trauma that was inflicted by the American invasion of Iraq in 2003, but I also had to deal with the fact that I had to get caught up. And I also had to integrate myself in this new community. And I would often worry going to school from the racist comments that I've experienced and the discrimination, and I wasn't able to defend myself. And that caused a huge barrier for me, because it was not my country, it was not my language, and certainly not the same beliefs that I had. And so that created not only an academic barrier, but also a personal barrier. And I often felt alone and felt like I couldn't express myself or be with my classmates the way I wanted to. In grade 6, I would often sit facing a computer and be told to sit on the computer screen and learn English. I had only one period in grade 6 where I was sitting one-on-one with a teacher, learning how to pronounce certain things. For example, the letter P, which is not prominent in the Arabic language, and the letter B, which is very much prominent. And that's why today you can understand me clearly, because she really worked on that accent of mine. But jokes aside, I had a very fundamental moment in grade 6. So I got really tired and sick of sitting in class facing a computer screen. So I decided to gather up the courage and talk to my teacher about it. The lesson she was teaching that day was long division, so the classroom was very quiet. I go up to her and I say that I really want to join the class. Would you please let me? And she didn't. She got really frustrated with me, and she ripped a piece of paper, and with a pen she drew a long division problem. And then she asked me, Aseel, do you know what this is? Do you know how to do this? I shook my head and said no. And in my head I was like, well, aren't you supposed to teach me? I didn't say that to her. But in my head I was like that. But I couldn't say anything because, again, my English was limited. So I went back to my seat, and I felt a shadow of shame and embarrassment follow me to my seat because my classmates heard this conversation. And it made me feel so small to not know such a simple concept. Or at least I thought it should be simple. And I personally thought it should just come to me. Like, these classmates of mine, they're doing it. Why can't I do it? And now I know that obviously knowledge doesn't come naturally. It's not like from the heavens. You have to learn it. You have to acquire it, and you struggle learning it. And so that was a very fundamental moment in my life. Then I go to grade 7, and I still did not know what the division sign was. So I asked my ESL teacher, Debs, who's now my mentor, actually. I tell her, what is this? And she told me that's a division sign. You will learn about it later, but first you have to build a strong foundation, as she would so often say, and then you can move on to the next lesson. And I got so frustrated because I was like, why don't I know this? And so in grade 7, I also was dreaming of becoming a medical doctor here, which was inspired by the fact that my mother is medically sick, and so I was like, I want to be a doctor so I can help people like my mother. And so I would tell people I want to be a medical doctor. And I would also tell them that I also want to graduate with my peers on time. And looking back now, I realize how crazy that sounds, because you're talking to an illiterate, enumerate student who's in grade 7 who does not know what the division sign was, and she wants to be a doctor in the Canadian system. That is so tough for Canadian speakers, let alone someone like me. And so obviously some people gently told me to be more realistic, find another dream, but I kept holding on to that wild dream of mine. And I had many mentors, like Debs, who constantly believed in me. But Debs instilled in me something more foundational than just building strong foundations. She instilled in me that untraditional paths to our goals or success are just as valid as traditional ones. Here I was comparing myself to students who've been in school their whole lives, and I was like, why can't I be at the same level as them? And I had to be taken out of the regular class and put into an ESL class, and to me that was embarrassing. And I realized my path is untraditional. I'm not like the others. And so I learned that fundamental lesson from Debs, that untraditional road to success is still as valid as traditional ones. So then I go to high school, grade 9. You know, I've learned enough to be able to go to grade 9. And so in grade 9, I scored the highest level on my E level of English. So there are different levels. The last level was F. And I really wanted to graduate with my peers and go to university right after. So after receiving those results, I was so excited. And I remember going to my ESL teacher, and I was like, I really want to go to the academic grade 9 English. She goes like, you have to go through level F and through applied English and then through academic. But then I was like, can I skip? Can I just go straight to academic? And then she was like, you could, but be prepared to fail. But she did support me, and she endorsed that decision. So I do. And it was the toughest English year ever. But I had an incredible English teacher who really supported me. And she taught me for 3 years. In grade 11, I scored the highest on grade 11 English, and the second highest in maths, advanced functions, in grade 11. Keep in mind, maths and science were subjects I had no knowledge in whatsoever, and I really hated. I remember Debs would teach me math in grade 7, and I would be so pissed because I did not understand the concepts. But I was able to build a strong foundation. So in a matter of 7 years, I went from being illiterate and enumerate to getting enough good grades to be able to apply to an academic, Bachelor of Science degree in Canada. And that was a big step for me. That was the biggest milestone that I had, and I was always focused on. And so I want to tell you something, that our mindsets are the most powerful things that we have. But at the same time, they're the most biggest liabilities that we have as well. Because our mindset tells us what we should and what we should not do, what we can, what we can't do, and it can often either limit us or push us forward. So we have to keep our mindsets clear and focused on the goal. And despite what others tell you, you have to keep focused on the goal. So then, after doing a first year of Bachelor's of Science in Biology and Psychology at Laurier, I moved up north because I wanted to gift myself the gift of finding my place in the world. I didn't want my parents' support. I wanted to be an independent woman. And so I came up for a northern adventure. And no one prepared me for how cold it was. In Sault Ste. Marie, I learned the biggest lessons of my life, and I had the hardest times in my life as well. And I also did extensive amount of research under the supervision of Dr. Molina in STEM, which is also something I was told I would never be able to do. And I obviously graduated and cum laude, which is something I was also told wouldn't be able to do. So, moving on. So the gift that I received from Sault Ste. Marie was further belief in myself and my goals and ideas. And as I reflect back on my journey, going from being illiterate and innumerate to now holding a bachelor's degree, I want to leave you with 5 tools. The first one is my favorite one, and it is courage. You have to have courage. Courage is not about not being scared to do something. It's about doing it even though you're terrified. So have courage. The second one is know your next move and set goals accordingly. The only reason why I was able to move through the academic, world, you could call it, from being, the applied and the English and all that stuff, is because I had a goal that directed my next steps. And I wasn't confused at any point in my journey because I had a goal and I knew how to get there. So having a goal and knowing your next move are the biggest, most important things in life, in my opinion. Next is reaching out. You have to reach out to people because you can't do this alone. And you must reach out to people because you want to, not because you just have to, or not because you need to. And because I reached out to people because I wanted to, and I took initiative to do that, I was able to meet some phenomenal human beings that are still play a huge part of my journey. Next is loving yourself. Love yourself enough to find joy. Love yourself enough to laugh. And love yourself enough to dance. Because joy and dancing and having fun is what life is about. It's not about ticking boxes. It's not about accomplishing all these great things, although they're very important. But it's not as important as loving yourself and taking care of yourself. And that's something that my Auntie Karen and Debs instilled in me. Sometimes I wonder how I was able to overcome those barriers. And I realize that it's not because I'm gifted. It's not because I'm special. It's only because I had those 5 tools that were so hard to believe in at first, let alone practice. And that I had wonderful people along the way, because you can't do anything alone. And because of those people, I was able to break free of those chains that still had a grip on me. Do I have chains still having a grip on me? Absolutely, and I think we all do. But the hardest part, and also the most rewarding part, is realizing that these are chains that are on us, but they're not permanent, that you can break free of them. And lastly, I want to leave you with something, maybe 2 words of wisdom. But live your life the way you want to, because you are on your own journey. Nobody, including your family, your loved ones, even your friends, don't know what you are capable of. And it might cost you people. Believe me, the biggest goals cost you a lot. And for me, leaving everything I have ever known behind and losing some very important people along the way has been the hardest, most painful thing I have ever done, but also the most rewarding. So go to the CN Tower as well. Thank you. Thank you.